from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Coming up today on AgDay, as financial stress sets in for some producers, operating loans are on the rise.
It's a very case-by-case scenario.
Yet the KC Fed finds lending rates at ag banks are starting to stabilize. Supporters of renewable fuels hit a grand slam with the head of EPA reinforcing his support to select senators. In agribusiness, what could a win for the ethanol industry mean for prices? And putting the farm into pharmacy.
They're literally prescribed fruits and vegetables by their care provider.
AgDay, presented by the Chevy Silverado. High-strength steel for high-strength dependability.
Good Monday morning. I'm Tyne Morgan in for Clinton Griffiths. Well, it was a whirlwind week for the renewable fuel standard last week. It ended on a high note. Farm Journal Washington correspondent Jim Wiesmeyer saying RFS supporters hit their World Series version of a grand slam. As the calendar draws near the November 30th statutory deadline for the RFS volume requirements, it sent Iowa legislators on a furious mission to put a stop to possible changes coming out of EPA. The uproar caused the Trump administration to order EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt to stand down on those changes, including lowering the federally mandated levels set by Congress of biofuels in the RFS. Now on Thursday, the head of EPA sending a note to senators reinforcing his support of the rule. Pruitt wrote, quote, "My responsibility as administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency is to faithfully administer the laws passed by the U.S. Congress. This agency must and will respect those laws," end quote. Now, the letter outlining a few key commitments, including leaving biodiesel levels untouched, leaving the RFS point of obligation unchanged, as well as expanding markets for E15. Republican Iowa Senator Joni Ernst was one of the 7 to receive the letter. She called it, quote, "a clear win for Iowans." Fellow Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley echoes that statement.
I hope we're successful in the end of turning this very detrimental actions on the part of EPA, both from the standpoint of agriculture, the environment, and good paying jobs in rural America, but also a departure from the president keeping his campaign promise, which I know the president wants to keep.
Meanwhile, the National Biodiesel Board says it appreciates the EPA won't pursue cuts to biodiesel volumes, but it still has concerns that the agency is not committed to raising the biodiesel levels. Well, farm country is continuing to respond to the news that the next round of NAFTA talks won't start until next month, pushing negotiations into next year. Well, the last round of talks between the three countries ended last week with few optimistic words. Much of the Great Divide focuses on auto production. From the ag side of talks, Canada is pushing back at the insistence of the U.S. negotiators to do away with Canada's supply management policies in dairy. Row crop farmers hope the agreement in limbo won't hurt their bottom line.
If that gets messed up, I mean, we haven't seen anything yet for low prices, I don't think.
Meanwhile, industry leaders on the produce sector say overall NAFTA has been positive to the industry, but it's better for some produce sectors over others, so there can always be modifications.
Every commodity has a different opinion about what NAFTA does for it. For some commodities, it's been good. For some, it hasn't been so good because of the competition. They pay a lot lower wages in Mexico than they pay in California. They have a better labor supply. They have a government willing and anxious to have their economies grow.
NASF says some produce growers have moved to other countries like Mexico because they can't afford to produce in the U.S. due to stiff regulations, labor, and lack of water. Well, some in the ag industry say uncertainty over trade deals like NAFTA will only weigh on commodity prices. That's as prices continue to struggle to rise above break-even levels for many farmers and ranchers. As a result, the Kansas City Fed says it's seeing requests for operating loans rise. In the latest ag finance data book, the Kansas City Fed said non-real estate farm loans increased 2% from last year during the third quarter of the year. That increase mirrors what the Fed saw in the second quarter of 2017. But opposite of what economists saw the previous 2 quarters when lenders reported a sharp decline in lending activity. Economists with the Fed say operating loans account for nearly 60% of the total volume of non-real estate loans for the past 4 quarters. That's the highest level since the Fed Fed started keeping track 40 years ago. Nathan Kaufman authors the data book, and he says working capital is how he measures short-term stress, but carryover debt is another key indicator.
I think that it depends on a case. It's a very case-by-case scenario. I think for some producers, carryover debt has become a problem, and they're having to interact with lenders and be very direct about what some options might look like. And for some producers, it really might be needing to sell some assets to be able to make things work for the next year. For other producers, they maybe made some very good adjustments going from one year to the next. They recognized the pressures that they were facing and were very careful about monitoring their own debt, and I think did make the kinds of adjustments that would be needed to make the long term an option.
Kaufman says delinquency rates are up from 2016, but lower than levels the Fed saw during the start of 2017. Well, La Nina already playing into crop outlooks next year, and U.S. forecasters think it could be a warm winter for a good chunk of the U.S. The National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, forecasting a warm winter from California through the Midwest all the way up to Maine. Those forecasters also calling for below average temperatures for southern Alaska, the Pacific Northwest, and then the northern tier of the U.S. Now, NOAA also thinks the southern U.S. will be drier than normal, with dry weather expected to settle into the Atlantic states, part of the Southeast, as well as South Texas and Arizona. Meteorologists think drought will remain parked in the northern plains as well. Well, the current drought picture showing a little relief in the northern plains. The latest drought monitor showing moderate drought in South Dakota improved 10 points in a week, and that same category in North Dakota actually got 23 points better in a week's time. And soaking rain systems dramatically changing the drought situation in the Midwest. It shows the area considered abnormally dry in Illinois improved 40 points in just 1 week, and that same category in Iowa saw a 13-point improvement. But it's not so good news in California. In the midst of all those wildfires, drought is stagnant with no change from the previous week. Well, we're digging into more harvest coverage on this morning's Crop Comments. Mike Hoffman has updates. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Tyne. Take a look at this. Clinton Griffiths on his day off sent us this from his own farm in northern Indiana. He says harvest has resumed after almost 8 inches of rain a week before. Farmers are reporting soybean yields between 45 and 61 bushels per acre. The ground is still squishy, but the beans are drying down. This next picture comes from Clark County, Kansas. The area was charred due to the Starbuck fire earlier in the year, which burned more than 460,000 acres in the county. As you can see, growth is occurring, but it's a process that is ongoing. And take a look at the estimated rain from last week. You can see most of the lower 48 didn't get a whole lot. We'll talk more about this and have your forecast for the week and the next 30 days coming up right after this. But first, here are some hometown temps.
Farm Journal On Air is the go-to app for American agriculture. AgDay, AgriTalk, U.S. Farm Report, and more. 24/7 access to all of your favorite shows, TV and radio. In your hands, on demand. Farm Journal On Air. Download the app today.
Still to come, the renewable fuels industry calling EPA's changing tone about the RFS a win. But is it a win for crop prices? Mark Gold and Angie Schisler join me at the Agribusiness Desk.
Stay tuned, folks. Coming up, we're going to talk big horsepower used tractors.
And we visit a market that plays the role of pharmacy. We'll explain when we head in the country. All right, now on AgDay, we have Andy Schisler and Mark Gold. We've been talking about the renewable fuel standard, the possible changes, and then kind of the administration ordering an EPA administrator to stand down. But overall, it sounds like Scott Pruitt is favoring the RFS and possibly looking to increase blends of E15. Could that be what we need to jumpstart this corn market?
I don't know that it'll jumpstart it. It'll help support it and put a little bit of a floor underneath it. But we've really got to see the numbers get chewed through and do something about this 2.3 billion bushel carryout. And I don't know that RFS is enough to do that.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have to, do some other things, maybe a CRP program, better exports. Something's got to do it. Or the main thing I think that could really switch this is if we can get the funds to buy it. They're short, I'm guessing 170, 180,000 contracts of corn, somewhere in that range. The money flow can turn this market on a dime, despite what the fundamentals say. And I think that's the best hope for the American farmer, that something triggers these farmers or the funds to come in.
What could trigger the funds to come in?
We trade a lot of crazy commodities, different stuff. And so like I've seen markets that had no trading interest all of a sudden have a lot of trading interest. And there's no fundamentals behind it. Like you look at pigs, traded $35 and traded up to 90. The fundamentals were the same. Cattle traded down to $95 with the wall of beef and traded up to 140. So like you don't even have to have the fundamentals behind the corn market for it to do something if it gets some trading interest. And at some point, I think they'll blow out of their short position and go long. And I think it'll be because of soybeans, is what I think.
So there's nothing really that would make this corn market more attractive to the funds. I mean, we just need them to come in for whatever that reason may be.
And unfortunately, nobody knows what that reason is. But certainly some technical indicators would force them to come in. But it's just really the money flow has got such an important part of this market. And that's why I don't want to be bearish corn at 350. I don't want to be bearish beans at 980. I still think there's a lot of upside potential in both the markets, but we need a trigger.
But will we have to wait a while for that upside potential real quick?
I don't think so. I think we'll rally beans into Jan 1. And I think the more beans that get sold off the combine, the more bullish this market gets. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you both for being here this week. We appreciate it. Stay with us. We have much more Ag Day when we come back.
For a special report on the grain markets, call toll-free at 877-TT-HEDGE. That's 877-884-3343.
For one-on-one marketing advice, call Andy Schisler with S&W Trading at 312-506-3888.
Ag Day weather, brought to you by Kawasaki and the new Mule Pro FXR side-by-side. Ride like a boss with high-end styling and rugged capability.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Meteorologist Mike Hoffman joins me now. Mike, I talked to a lot of farmers last week that were thankful that the skies opened up. They were able to make some major harvest headway. Does that system change this week, or do you think more harvest progress will be made?
Oh, I think a lot more progress will be made. Southeast and east have the best chance for some rain, and we'll get to that map coming up. But you can see in the estimated rain for last week, and this goes all the way back to a week ago Saturday through this past Friday, and a lot of this was a week ago Saturday. This was just a system that sat there, and so you can see the area from Chicago over into southwest Michigan, South Bend area, and northern Indiana got a lot of rain. Some areas ended up with more than 5 inches, but you can see 2-3 inch amounts all the way back into eastern Kansas with that same system. Now, as far as the drought monitor is concerned, we continue to see pockets of dryness in the Corn Belt. You can see the majority now is kind of developed in the northern and western Arkansas, surrounding states as well. It's gotten a little bit better, though, in that north central area of the Mississippi Valley that was starting to dry out. And then you can see the worst area is still western South Dakota into northern or eastern portions of Montana. Now, take a look at the jet stream as we head through this week, a total flip-flop from last week. So we're looking at the trough in the east. That's a pretty sharp trough right there for the middle of the week, middle of the country as well. Mainly, though, that coldest air is going to be east of the Mississippi River, warmer air out west, and another little piece of that trough digs in as we head through the end of the week on Friday. And it looks like that pattern is going to remain for a while, although it tries to go zonal again as we head into the following week. So let's take a look at temperatures this week. I'm going below normal from much of the Great Lakes all the way through the Mississippi Valley into the southeast, above normal for New England and other parts of the northeast, and basically the Rocky Mountain states and California expected to be above normal for temperatures. Precipitation this week, whole bunch of the country going to be below normal from the western lakes through most of the plains into the west. Above normal, though, for just east of the Mississippi River, all the way from the southeast into the northeastern portions of the country. 30-day outlook for temperatures: above normal northeast, below normal Four Corner region back into much of California, above normal I should have said there, and below normal for the southern portions of the Mississippi Valley and the far northwest. Precipitation over the next 30 days, below normal in the northeast, below normal from Arkansas, Texas westward, and above normal in the northwest. Most of the Corn Belt expected to be close to normal. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. We head to Merced, California. First of all, good deal of sunshine and mild today, high of 81 degrees. Omaha, Nebraska, mostly sunny, breezy, and mild with a high of 68. And Wheeling, West Virginia, variably cloudy. There is a chance of rain, high of 71.
Still to come, what trend is Machinery Pete watching when it comes to larger tractors? He joins us next. And find out how a prescription for health starts at the farm. Details when we head in the country to Tennessee.
Machinery Pete is brought to you by John Deere. Where can you find the most comprehensive inventory of John Deere certified pre-owned tractors, combines, and sprayers? MachineFinder.com. Sometimes the best new addition to your fleet isn't new.
Recently, Machinery Pete has noticed some strong sales of larger tractors. But is it a growing trend? Here's Machinery Pete.
Okay folks, let's talk used values on high horsepower tractors. Now just this week we're releasing our Machinery Pete Used Values Index Report for the third quarter. And this is a quarterly report where I use our auction sale price data to try to put a trend line analysis on what's happening with used values. Now here's a look at the second quarter 2017 report from our Used Values Index on 200 plus horse tractors. And you can see on my 1 to 10 rating scale, our rating came in at 6.6. Now that's down quite a bit from 2-3 years ago, but been holding steady the last year and a half. And here's your inside scoop. The third quarter rating is going to come in at 6.5, down just a smidge from 6.6, but basically holding. And really, if I look back over the last 4 years, the average drop in the third quarter has been 0.4 points, because third quarter is a soft time year to sell at auction. So it only dropped 0.1 points, holding in there pretty steady. Now another way to look at it, here's a 2011 Versatile 305, 1,063 hours on it, sold September 12th, farm auction, Northern Iowa, brought $93,000 bucks. Now I compare that to a very similar one, another 11 model, with over 400 fewer hours that sold on an auction in Northeast Missouri back end of January. That one only brought $90,000. So again, good condition, high horsepower tractors, values pretty much holding.
Up next in the country, putting the F in pharmacy.
I'm Charles Denny. We've got a prescription to fill at a pharmacy. But here the order is for healthy produce. That story from Jonesboro, Tennessee, coming up on AgDay.
This is Machinery Pete, inviting you to check out my new website, machinerypete.com, offering farmers tens of thousands of used equipment listings to search. Let Machinery Pete help you find and value your next piece of used equipment.
In the Country, sponsored by Kubota. Discover the power behind the M6 series at Kubota.com or visit your local Kubota dealer today.
Well, eating fresh produce is a smart way to stay healthy. And what if you could get an actual prescription for fruits and vegetables? That's the idea with the Tennessee Appalachian Pharmacy program, where pharmacy is spelled with an F. Charles Denny shows us how farmers markets are part of this effort.
It's not your typical pharmacy, spelled with an F and not a PH, but also the locale and the medicine are different. UT Extension agent Elizabeth Elizondo is shopping at the Boone Street Farmers Market in Jonesboro, loading up on fruits and vegetables. And here's the destination for that healthy produce, the Johnson City Community Health Center. UT Extension teaches cooking classes here as part of the Appalachian Pharmacy program.
In those cooking classes, we talk about just basic nutrition, about eating more fruits and vegetables. We'll talk about food safety and just kind of how to preserve their food to make it last through the winter time.
Class cookers slice and dice produce, learning to make stir-fry and sautéed dishes. But also people here are encouraged to visit farmers markets, and many say that's where they find good bargains.
I'm able to get vegetables there that I like, that I can't get at the grocery store, such as small potatoes instead of large, small onions instead of large.
As part of the pharmacy program, families and elderly people are prescribed vouchers they can cash in for healthy foods. A family of 4 can receive up to $28 a week to spend at a farmer's market.
So it's framed as a prescription, and so they're literally prescribed fruits and vegetables by their care provider, usually a nurse in this case. And it comes in the form of these coupon booklets, so they get a month at a time.
Consider too the economic impact. People are spending their vouchers at Washington County farmers markets. More than $50,000 in USDA grant money, all going for locally grown produce.
By the end of class, it's tasty reward time. The old saying about an apple a day keeping the doctor away really does apply here. And regardless of how you spell pharmacy, it's a location we can visit to get healthier. This is Charles Denny reporting.
Why do we have to show food on Monday? Now I'm already hungry. Well, that's all the time we have this morning. We're so glad you tuned in. For all of us at AgDay, I'm Tyne Morgan. Have a great week in Farm Country.
AgDay, brought to you by Ram Commercial, America's longest lasting heavy-duty pickups.